These Texcoco people were famous for sacrificing prisoners to their gods, for human sacrifices. The king of the Phoenician nation vowed to sacrifice his son at the feet of the gods. Manoah sacrifices his daughter at the feet of the goddess Artemis. He slaughters his daughter, and many such stories are told. Somali has taken the concept of religion from Judaism, and the concept of sacrifice has also been taken from there. Friends, I hope you are all well. Today, I want to discuss the philosophy of sacrifice as Eid al-Adha approaches. Many friends have suggested discussing Eid al-Adha, so let's begin. The first point is, how did the concept of sacrifice emerge in humans? If we examine anthropology, it tells us that the concept of sacrifice emerged in humans when they began too. In scattered forms, people began moving towards cities or towns, though lion is not the right word here. They began to live in settlements resembling towns. The purpose of rituals, which are various ceremonies, is community integration, meaning to keep a community united. Where does sacrifice fit into this? Sacrifice tells you that if you dedicate something of yours, then you are sincere, meaning if you make a sacrifice. In your society, in your group, you are sincere with them. This is exactly the concept we see today when we go to mosques, and there are appeals for donations, and someone stands up and says, I gave this many thousands, I gave this many hundreds, and then they are praised. The reason is that you are showing solidarity, you are demonstrating agreement with them, you are demonstrating solidarity with them. You are discussing united nationality with them, that you are spending a significant portion of money, which is a very important thing. This is the same concept that the Tablighi Jamaat tells us, that you should spend 40 days, 3 months, 4 months, etc. So, the concept of sacrifice is used to show unity. Now, when you give unity 2 colors, and make sacrifice the means to achieve it, it becomes a religious ritual. It is. We first find its remnants in Mesopotamia, where sacrifices were made to appease the gods. Then in Egyptian civilization it was a kind of give-and-take arrangement. For example, it is narrated about Hazrat Umar that the Nile River used to demand the sacrifice of a virgin girl every year. So Hazrat Umar wrote a letter and put it in the river. This is a false tradition, but the point is that the purpose of sacrifice was to please the gods, a give-and-take. Meaning you are telling the god, you give me favor, and I will give you sacrifice. Along with this, there were storms. There were excessive rains, so people developed this concept that if the gods are going to destroy our homes, and let's say our crops, why not give them something in advance? Destroy some things ourselves so that they become appeased. In this, animals were sacrificed, crops were sacrificed, slaves were sacrificed, and in some cases, even children were sacrificed. These Texcoco people were very famous for human sacrifices, because their era is quite recent, meaning 500 or 800 years ago, not 800. Their era is considered to be around 600 years ago, and they were quite renowned at that time. Prisoners were sacrificed before their gods, and children were offered as human sacrifices, especially children who were disabled, or, let's say, surplus, particularly women, so they were sacrificed, and the sacrifice of sons was considered more significant. In Islamic stories, it is also mentioned that the father of Prophet Muhammad Mustafa, PBH, Hazrat Abdullah, his father, meaning the grandfather of Muhammad, PBH, also vowed to sacrifice his sons, and then Hazrat Abdullah's name was drawn, 3 times, and each time, when his name was drawn, the priest would say, do not sacrifice your son, instead give 100 camels. Then the draw was held again, and his name came up once more, so another 100 camels were given. This happened a 3rd time as well, and camels were given each time. On the 4th draw, someone else's name was drawn instead of Hazrat Abdullah. There is also a narration that Prophet Muhammad said, I am the descendant of 2 sacrifices, meaning 2 individuals who were to be sacrificed. Hazrat Abdullah was not sacrificed, meaning the father of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and the other was Hazrat Ismail, PBUH. I will discuss the reference to Ismail and Isaac a bit further. Now, let's examine the myth of sacrifice in some other civilizations. In myth, I am not calling it evil, it was a formal ritual. The king of the Phoenician nation vowed to sacrifice his son at the feet of the gods. Some traditions say he sacrificed him, and others say the son was miraculously saved. It is quite possible that he sacrificed one son, the other son survived, or one son was killed, and a subsequent son survived, or these stories became famous later. This is how it is. The ritual of sacrificing one's offspring to the gods was certainly present there. After that, we have the mention of another who were also quite famous. Animals were sacrificed for the purpose of offering, crops were sacrificed, and then when we come to Greece, there was a king named Agamemnon. A very famous king then emerged. There was a famous war of the Parthian trial, in which the war occurs due to Helen of Troy, as another king's son falls in love with her, a very beautiful woman. So when this war begins, the weather is not favorable. Now, if forbidden, he sacrifices his daughter at the feet of the goddess Artemis. He slaughters his daughter, and then the goddess becomes pleased. She calms the waves of the sea, and then he sets out to attack, as mentioned in the traditions. Then we see in the Rig Veda, there is also mention of sacrifices. It includes the sacrifice of a horse and the ritual of Agnihotra. Agnihotri is a very well-known name, and through the Rig Veda, the concept of sacrifice is discussed in detail. I am leaving these stories aside as well. Left it because the video would become too long. Now let's talk about Islamic sacrifice. So Muhammad, peace be upon him, adopted many rituals and concepts of religion from Judaism. So he adopted the concept of sacrifice from there as well. Jews considered Hazrat Isaac as the sacrificial one. Here, I must mention that we do not find anyone by the name of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, in history. There is mention of another person whose name was not Ibrahim. And if we look at it, meaning the pronunciation of words changes with languages, and Ibrahim's name does not fit in, but nevertheless, it is a character. Where he worked, where Ibrahim, peace be upon him, lived, where he traveled, the place, which was their era, approximately 3,500 years ago. So human sacrifices were quite common in that region. So this is what Jewish scholars tell us, that in that region, human sacrifices were very common, which is why Hazrat Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was asked to sacrifice his son. Now, I leave this decision to you. Why would a merciful and gracious God use such a cruel ritual for testing? So Ibrahim, peace be upon him, might think, what does this matter? That the idols I am rejecting, the gods I am rejecting, my God, whom I believe in, who gives me guidance, is also demanding the same from me. Demanding what the gods of other Eastern religions do, to sacrifice your son at our feet in our temple. So this is certainly a strange matter, but Jews tell us that the reason for this test was that in that era, in that region, human sacrifice was a common ritual, considered the highest form of sacrifice. The highest form of sacrifice is that a person sacrifices their offspring, especially their son. Remember that until we invented medicines, until modern medicine was invented, sons were considered a great blessing. Business was conducted through them. Farming was done through them. You could send sons to the army for a high salary, send them to the court for benefits. You could fulfill your interests, so sons were considered a great wealth. Even today, in India and Pakistan, sons hold significant importance, and India and China are among the countries where the number of women is less than men. Generally, women are 1.2 or 1.3 to 1 male, meaning there are 1.2 or 3 women per man. But in India, they are fewer. Now, they have imposed strict restrictions about 2 or 3 decades ago. It used to be written, meaning there were banners in clinics saying, spend 500 and save 500,000, meaning get an ultrasound for 500. If it's a daughter, we will abort it, terminate the pregnancy, so the money you would spend on her dowry, 500,000, you save. There was a very famous slogan, but now there is a strict ban on it, and a strict ban on dowry as well. There is no ban on dowry in Pakistan, as far as my knowledge goes. In India, there is a ban, and it is enforced quite strictly, yet we still hear cases of significant oppression and injustice. Women suffer due to dowry demands, even in well-educated families, if they are not given dowry. This is a tradition. What can you say about it? Anyway, moving forward, let's return to the concept of Islamic sacrifice. As I mentioned, according to Jewish scholars, Hazrat Ibrahim was given the task. Sacrifice your daughter. The one who was to be sacrificed was Hazrat Isaac, peace be upon him. He was not Hazrat Ismail, peace be upon him. Before discussing their story, let me tell you another thing. There was a practice of Hazrat Muhammad, and this practice is mentioned in an agreed-upon hadith, meaning, when polytheists sacrificed animals to their gods, they would mark them and let them go, meaning they would cut their ears, or if it was a camel, they would cut its hump and mix its blood in it. And this was a sign that this is a sacrificial animal or an animal for sacrifice. This is also mentioned in the Holy Quran. If you read any book about Eid al-Adha, you will find all these references in it. Well, Muhammad, peace be upon him, also performed the same act of marking the hump of the sacrificial camel, and then placing a necklace of shoes around its neck, a necklace of 2 shoes, as a sign, to indicate why this sacrifice is being made. Now, you won't find this hadith anywhere, although it is a unanimously agreed upon hadith. If you search even now, you will find it. Those who are going to A and try GPT, but it is authentic, they will also search for it. I specifically checked last night, so if you search for it, Jivan Aye and Chai Gupti will also provide you with references that this is a correct, unanimously agreed upon hadith. As I mentioned earlier, the status of a unanimously agreed upon hadith is only one level below the Holy Quran. Its authenticity is almost equal to that of the Quran, at least it is slightly less. So in this no one narrates this hadith. It is, according to the Hanafis, it is prohibited to cut the ears of animals or mark them with blood by cutting their skin, meaning a correct. They have violated a hadith. Imam Naqvi, who is another imam whose jurisprudence is no longer followed, he also prohibited this practice, stating that this ritual should not be performed. It is referred to as a problem or issue, indicating that it should not be done. Well, its other meaning is that you cut something, but it was used for animals, or you would make an incision on the ear or belly of the sacrificial animal and smear the blood on it. Now, the question arises here that this ritual could have been completed by applying some other color. What was the purpose of causing pain to the animal? Why would you cause pain to an innocent animal? That it will be sacrificed? First, you are cutting it anyway, and then you are causing it further pain. So, in any case, this was an inhumane ritual. A polytheistic Arab, this was prevalent in the religion. Muhammad Aslam did not continue this as a sacrificial ritual in Islam, but changed its philosophy. They did it for their deities. Or you continued it as a memorial for Ibrahim, peace be upon him. However, it should be noted that the method remained the same, the necklace of shoes, and making an incision on the body to smear it with blood. Here, a very interesting situation arises. According to Muhammad's film, Zubair was also from the lineage of Isaac. Now, a problem arises that there is no clear connection with Isaac. So what connection does Mecca have? Therefore, the story of Ismail was invented, that Ibrahim took his wife Hagar, he had settled her there, and then the Zamzam spring emerged. All these stories were later invented to establish Ibrahim's connection with Mecca and Ismail's connection with sacrifice, so that Banu Ismail could also have a distinct status. This is the same point I mentioned in the video with Oya Sahib, that this is related to the concept of Gentile prophet, or Nabi Ulami. It is related to Muhammad's desire for Jews to accept him as Nabi Alami. This is also a Jewish concept, whose Arabic version, Nabi al-Ummi, was later interpreted as illiterate, and so on. Its original meaning, according to the Bible, was that prophets could also come from outside the Israelites, and the Bible mentions 7 such prophets. These prophets came from outside the Israelites, but were still prophets. So Muhammad, peace be upon him, wanted to claim that status, called Nabi al-Ummi, and to connect himself with the Israelites and their religious tradition. Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was brought to Mecca. Then the sacrifice of Ismail is made. But this is an invention when Muhammad, peace be upon him, introduced the concept of sacrifice in his religion. If anyone finds it offensive, I am not saying invention for any reason. I am stating based on my research. When you incorporated it into Islam, you took it from the Bible, and I will provide evidence for this later. Now, there is also a debate among us that this is a sign of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. This is a memorial of his sunnah, so here I say, brother, pause for a moment. On one hand, you are given this notion that Islam originates from Ibrahim, peace be upon him. It started from him and reached the Israelites, who were then guided to spread this religion worldwide, and prophets were sent one after another. All the books were revealed among them. But still, they were rebellious and unfortunate people, repeatedly facing punishments, so the task was given to Banu Ismail, meaning performing sacrifice is the sunnah of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Alright, the point is clear, now move forward. If this is the sunnah of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, then why don't the other prophets of Israel perform sacrifices? Read thoroughly. You won't find a single prophet after Ibrahim, peace be upon him, performing sacrifices. Let me repeat, you will not find a single prophet after Ibrahim, peace be upon him. You will not see any of them performing sacrifices. It is the entire history of the Israelites. No one will see, but our scholars give us this lollipop, that it is a memorial of Hazrat Ibrahim, peace be upon him, which Muhammad Mustafa, peace be upon him, instituted in Islam. The truth is that this is an Eastern tradition, like they used to sacrifice for their idols. The tradition of animal sacrifice was adopted, and this tradition was then incorporated into Islam. And it was initially believed to be a Jewish tradition. It came from the Jewish religion in 80 days, because both are prophets sent by the same God. And then there is the concept of Nabi Walmi, that you are a gentle prophet, meaning you are a prophet from outside the Israelites, whose mention is in the Torah. The Jews did not accept it, but I will tell you about this in another video. Now let's quickly review these few verses that are presented for sacrifice. So the first one in front of me. The said is described in this way. It is a very famous commentary, a brief commentary. The translation in it is by Maulana Muhammad Jonagari, and this commentary is by Hafiz Salahuddin Yusuf. Now, many famous commentaries are available online, which you can read yourself if you have any doubts. So I will read the translation of Inayat from it, and then present some further observations on it. So we read Surah Safa, which is Surah number 37, and I am reading from verse 102. And when the child reached the age to run with him, Ibrahim said, "My dear child, I see myself sacrificing you in a dream. Now tell me, what is your opinion?" The son replied, "Father, do as you have been commanded. Inshallah, you will find me among the patient ones." So when both submitted, Ibrahim laid his son down on his forehead. We called out, "O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled your dream. Indeed, we reward the righteous in 80 ways. In reality, this was a clear test, and we provided a great ransom for it, and we kept its mention among the later generations. Peace be upon Ibrahim. We reward the righteous in 80 ways. These were the verses up to 110. Now the important verses are coming. Stay with me. Indeed, he, meaning Ibrahim, was among our faithful servants. And we gave him the glad tidings of the prophet Ishaq, who will be among the people. And we bestowed blessings upon Ibrahim and Ishaq. And among their descendants, some are righteous, and some are clearly wrongdoers. Here, our Sunni scholars give us the narrative, or lollipop, that there is chronology in them, meaning that the mention of the first son is of Hazrat Ismail, who was sacrificed, and then the glad tidings are given that we gave him the glad tidings of the prophet Ishaq. Why is it not possible that this child reached the age of running, which commentators say is 12 to 13 years old, and at that time he was brought for sacrifice? He showed his willingness for the sacrifice, then a ram was sacrificed in his place, and the glad tidings were given that this child would be made a prophet. This is a very simple matter, but the scholars, they present it in a particular order. The first child was Ismail. The Quran itself refutes this. In verse number 112, which I read, it is mentioned that we bestowed blessings upon Ibrahim and Ishaq from the beginning. From verse number 102, the mention is of the father and son. Here too, the glad tidings being given should be said to be of blessings, being given to the father and son, meaning Ibrahim and Ishaq are mentioned by name. If Hazrat Ismail, peace be upon him, were here, his name would certainly be mentioned, but it is not included, for 80 reasons. Now you might say that I am talking nonsense, so I will tell you more things. Stay with me. So this was the Ahsan al-Bayan Sunni commentary. Now I will tell you from the Shia commentary. This is Tafsir Namuna. This is a very famous commentary. It is available in Urdu. It is available in 15 volumes, perhaps online as well. I am not sure. This is the commentary of Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, one should say. A group of researchers and commentators compiled this commentary. And whatever I say, the truth is that it is a very good commentary, meaning if you want to understand the Holy Quran, this commentary is excellent, whether you are Sunni or Shia. It is one of my favorites. Anyway, now they write in the commentary of Surah Safa, number 10 here, who is Zabiya Allah. Regarding this, which of Hazrat Ibrahim's two sons, Ismail, peace be upon him, and Ishaq, peace be upon him, was brought to the sacrificial place, and who received the title of Zabiha Allah, there is intense debate among the commentators. One group considers Hazrat Ishaq to be the one who was sacrificed, and one group considers Hazrat Ismail. The first theory, meaning the sacrifice of Hazrat Ishaq, is adopted by many Sunni commentators, and the second theory is adopted by Shia commentators. They provide arguments on it, but I leave them aside. Those who are interested can go and read it themselves. So what they are discussing here is the significant disagreement about who Zabi is. That is, the majority of interpreters hold this view. They considered Hazrat Ishaq to be Zabi Allah. They regarded him as Zabi Allah. Later, followers of Hazrat Ismail emerged. So, they are saying that Sunni scholars believe in Hazrat Ishaq being Zabi, while Shia scholars have adopted the narrative of Hazrat Ismail. The simple fact is that Shia Islam developed its distinct identity several centuries later, meaning if we examine its theology or dogma, it emerged 300 to 400 years later. They are clearly documented. They began writing during the Abbasid era. It should be said that they started to be questioned, and then they were integrated into beliefs after a considerable time. So due to this reason, the narrative about Ismail was adopted by Shia interpreters. The Sunni narrative was taken by Muqaddami, and I will provide you with its evidence. Now, I am going to show you the interpretation. Here it is. Dibyan ul-Quran is an interpretation in 12 volumes by Barelvi scholar Allama Ghulam Rasul Saidi. However, it should be noted that it is not heavily influenced by Barelvi thought. He is a very good religious scholar, and his 2 books on hadith became very famous. His commentary on Sahih Muslim is very famous, and his commentary on Sahih Bukhari is also very well known. He also wrote a detailed exegesis of the Quran. This is volume 9 out of 12, and in it, he explains, through the interpretation of Surah Al-Safat, which son of Hazrat Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was Zabi. Hazrat Ismail, or Hazrat Ishaq, according to Allama Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Ahmad Malik, the author of Tafsir al-Qurtubi, and this is Allama Qutubi. He belongs to the 7th century. That is, this is the 7th century Hijri, meaning he was an exegete from several centuries ago. What does he write? He writes, meaning he belongs to the 11th or 12th century. So, there is a disagreement among scholars about which son of Hazrat Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was commanded to be sacrificed. Most scholars hold the view that Zabi was Hazrat Ishaq, peace be upon him. This is the same point written by Makram Shirazi. In his work, he states that the majority of Sunni interpreters consider Hazrat Ishaq as Zabi Allah. Who agrees with this? Hazrat Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib, Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas, meaning your uncle, Hazrat Abbas, and your son, Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas, for whom Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prayed for understanding of the Quran. And we have a very detailed narrative from Hazrat. It consists of narratives reported by Ibn Abbas. Hazrat Abbas Abdul Muttalib, Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas, Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud, Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah, Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib. Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib also believe Hazrat Ishaq to be Zabi Allah. But then, I think there is an advertisement of Shia ijtihad in this, where they should have said that they did not accept it correctly. Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib, Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar, and Hazrat Umar bin Khattab. Along with them, the companions hold the view that Zabi is Hazrat Ishaq, peace be upon him, and among the Tabi'un, it is the opinion of Alqama, Sa'id bin Jubair, Ikrimah, Al-Qasim, Ata, Maqatil, Abdurrahman bin Thabit, Zuhri, Sadi, Abdullah bin Hussein, Malik bin 19, etc. said that Hazrat Ishaq is Zabi. That is, the companions, the Tabi'un, their students, and their students' students, these 4 generations, meaning Muhammad, peace be upon him, the companions, the Tabi'un, and the Tabi'un, these 4. These are the most authentic sources of all our narratives and all our knowledge. So, among the Tabi'un, these people also believe that Hazrat Ishaq, peace be upon him, is Zabi. The people of the book, Jews and Christians, also agree on this, meaning Jews and Christians also say that Hazrat Ishaq is Zabi. Tabari also holds this view, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions and interpretations strongly support this opinion. That is, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the companions, the Tabi'un, the Tabi'un, the Jews, and the Christians. These are 5 sources, and all 5 agree that the one who was to be sacrificed was Hazrat Ishaq, peace be upon him. But again, in order to give Islam a distinct identity, to make Islam a separate religion, these ideas were introduced that, no, it was Hazrat Ismail. In the prayers, you do not even hear mention of this. In interpretations, you will find it, but in general, interpretations by good, honest interpreters, you will not find its mention at all. As I have seen, they have written very few sentences about it, and they have not mentioned how many great scholars and companions believed Hazrat Ishaq to be Zabi. They have completely overlooked it. In Imam Qawan's interpretation, there is no such mention either. It's a good thing, and the Imams of the Ramji sect should not be called Imam Gam. Now, let us turn to those matters which are said to be the wisdoms behind the sacrificial animals. So, they say that the meat of sacrificial animals is delivered to the poor and sent to countries, etc. Now, this statement is half true and half, at most, false. Why is that? Because 50, 60, 70, in these 3 decades, the number of pilgrims has started to increase. Previously, if you read the accounts of our scholars before partition, and when Muslims ruled India, the pilgrimage journey used to take 1 to 2 years, and those who went on pilgrimage would return after 2 to 3 years. So very few people went on pilgrimage, fewer sacrifices were made, and the meat would increase, which they would consume. Then after the 1950s, it started to increase. At that time, the government would burn the meat. Yes, it did. Imagine, today perhaps around 2,500,000 people go. If 100,000 people go, even if 10,000 go, start with 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. When so many people started going, then what would happen to those animals? You could not do anything with them. You could not even eat them. The weather was extremely hot, and the meat would spoil quickly, so it was burned. If your grandfather is alive today and performed pilgrimage in the 80s, they would testify to this, as grandfathers and elders have heard. Even now, our books mention that animals were gathered and their carcasses were burned. Then came the infidels, the English, who invented freezers, and then, in the 1970s, it emerged. Oil. Oil didn't emerge in the 1970s. It came out in the 1800s. But refineries started being built. and they got money, and then freezers came, flash freezing started, and then meat was frozen and sent to poor countries. Let me tell you another thing about the Messiah. These animals also come from those. They come from the poorest countries like Ethiopia, Sudan, Morocco, Egypt. From those regions, sheep, goats, camels, cows, buffaloes, all are brought to Arab countries. Then they are sacrificed, and their meat is frozen and sent back. The government also spent a lot of money on this. So now there are many more pilgrims, and now what happens is that they are often buried. Large cranes, as they are called, they are such large cranes that they can lift a ton of sand at a time from the ground. So a ton of sand is lifted, a pit is made, animals are placed in it, and they are buried. It is. And then you are given a lollipop, saying this is the will of God. Then you are given another lollipop, saying look how much business it generates, how many people get employment. It's strange that the animals that are sacrificed are raised for sacrifice, and they are meant to be sacrificed for the need of meat. Instead of slaughtering 100,000 or 2,500,000 animals in one day, if you spread it over the year, the same 2,500,000 animals will be slaughtered. The meat will be used, the hides will be used, so the business will be the same. This is also a lollipop given by scholars, meaning the real issue is that God did not know that. So many Muslims would increase, and so many sacrifices would be made. So many animals' lives would be taken, and so much of their meat and hides would be wasted. Millions of dollars would be wasted in this way. Then another thing is said, that you should donate the amount for sacrifice. This is forbidden. Why? Because what is made absolutely clear in the Quran, there is no room for interpretation on it. There is no interpretation on it. For the video I recently posted about women, many people said that 4 witnesses are not necessary for a crime, which is completely false. Those who are interested in research can do so. This cannot be almost superseded either. So, for the recent Sunni Islamic conference held in 2007, a ruling was issued. In it, for rape, DNA evidence, semen found in a woman's private parts, fingerprinting, and other such things were considered under circumstantial evidence. In Islamic jurisprudence, for the limit of punishment, meaning, for execution or flogging, you still need 4 wise male witnesses. In some cases, you need 3 wise men and 2 wise women as witnesses. So what is absolutely and explicitly stated in the Quran cannot be changed by advertising. Therefore, all Sunni scholars, whether Barelvi or Deobandi, say that sacrifice should remain as sacrifice. You cannot replace it with charity to feed the poor or pay for someone's medical operation. You have to slaughter the animal. Anyway, I don't want to say more on this. A hint is enough for the wise. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and support with the believers. See you in a few days with the new video. Take care of yourself. Eid Mubarak to all. Goodbye.